Talk here is sort of a snippet of a keynote I did in Singapore last month. So I'm going to contextualize it a little bit. It's about what is happening in China in the last 10 years of education. And I was asked to talk about what are the changes that should happen or is likely to happen in Southeast Asia. So basically, where China goes, so does Southeast Asia. So we look at 5 sectors in China that would be blueprints for what you should expect in education in Southeast Asia. So as you can see, it's not really ed tech. It's too long for that. First industry is overseas test preparation and education agencies. I actually started in education as a Kaplan instructor here to make money from beer. So in China, in 2003, EDU, or Edge Education, won a lawsuit against ETS. ETS tried to sue it for copyright infringement of the TOEFL exam. ETS won, but eventually lost and had to do a deal with New Oriental to co-brand their actual test in China. New Oriental IPO'd in 2006. It's now the number 2 largest China education company in the world. I think about a 10 billion US valuation. Significantly in 2006, a company that we know and used to love, the Princeton Review, got delisted and went from $1 billion company to being sold for parts only about 5-6 years ago. Test prep in the world and in Asia, I think, is in sunsetting. It's too easy to take the SATs and other exams nowadays. So, but at the same time, we see an IPO in a company called Puxin Education, which is a pure M&A roll-up of test prep centers across China. Basically finding gurus in different regions, rolling them up into a singular brand. So in Southeast Asia, we see the rise of English language centers that have test preparation as well. ILA Vietnam started in 1995. YOLA, that was founded by some friends of mine. It does early childhood education. They were founded in 2009. They're now about 25 million valuation, I believe. Summit Education, also in Vietnam. And the company that I founded, The Edge, about 10 years ago, we came to my hometown, Vietnam, in 2019. So that's pretty exciting. And I think the test preparation market is still growing. In Vietnam and Southeast Asia, there's really a lack of teacher supply. It's a problem that we're solving through obviously human resourcing as well as ed tech, bringing teachers online and into the classroom. And it died. Oh, I see. Back. Oh, there you go. Another sector that's interesting is K-12 international schools. If you don't know, in China there are 1,800 international schools. These are like sort of public-private international schools that are separate from the traditional government local schools that exist. So some of the key issues is a need for improvement of operations and educational efficacy. They're trying to have a reduced reliance on foreign teachers and administrators. In other words, less white people in China. So that's going to be an interesting pressure on the system. How do you provide quality international education without international players? The investment model itself is under pressure. There was a big roll-up of international schools across the region, but now it's hard to decouple the real estate asset from the cash flowing educational business model. So it's been hard to take these companies public and actually show investors real returns. So they're beginning to privatize again. In Southeast Asia, however, there's a complete lack of international schools. There's so much need for better quality education. And so I see a strong growth in international schools in the next couple of years. It would be really interesting to bring in capital into Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, to build high-quality international schools. Again, you have problems of labor retention and recruitment, but that's a challenge we always have in the education space. There's going to be a lot of relationships with developers, land developers themselves, who will work with government support to get land grants in order to build these schools. Another space that's interesting is K-12 learning centers. That's a market that really doesn't exist very largely in America because we don't focus on that kind of thing. But in Asia, it's dominant, right? It's a huge industry, as you can see from $10 billion publicly listed companies. So we're going to see about 30% growth rates in this region, in this area, excuse me. And also a further focus on academic prep. English language acquisition was part of the main thrust of these learning centers, but we're going to see academic prep, we're going to see coding, we're going to see STEM technology work. So we're going to have a lot of national players and regional players looking to franchise up, and that's my company. We do that throughout China, 300 learning centers, 120,000 students nationwide. In Vietnam is probably the most exciting area for that. There's a bunch of players who are all growing very, very, very well as the demand for basically English language learning and STEAM is just skyrocketing. Another area that I don't focus on particularly is voc tech. Vocational colleges are big, as we sort of say, the four-year liberal arts degree doesn't really apply to emerging markets as much, so there's a need for vocational colleges that'll teach directly applicable skills in the workforce. So here it's an interesting area because these are paid by the students themselves. You're going to see tighter margins, less resources, a focus on for certifications. And again, Southeast Asia should be a great area for this as well. And finally, I'd like to say, because I work with all the top publishers around the world and try to negotiate with those publishers to do different types of deals. There's obviously a focus on bringing that content and brand back to Asia, whatever your company is. I think that there needs to be a thought of looking at joint ventures rather than pure licensing deals. A lot of American companies come to Asia and say, we just want to do a licensing deal, give us top line, and we'll ignore you. And semi-closed economies like China and Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia are going to say no to that. And for those companies who are looking to do operational expansion, do learn your country that you're trying to tackle. I had a publisher quote me at $3 million US in licensing fees for Singapore, and I was like, that's like you're asking for 50,000 students in Singapore, and that doesn't make any economic sense whatsoever. Do your math again, so beware of that. And finally, a little bit snippet, I didn't mean to talk about EdTech in Asia. So there are right now 3,000 EdTech companies in Beijing alone. It is the largest EdTech market China is in the world. So it'll be a really interesting time to see how education and EdTech in Asia flourish in the next decade. Thanks.